hello, and welcome to We're Gonna Need a Bigger Pod. It's a podcast all about movies. What are you laughing for?
All that training, and you still haven't worked out the pops yet.
No. And that's the pops that come out of my mouth and not the other end. Right.
Well, let's not talk about those.
No, let's not.
No.
So we're going to need a bigger pod. Was that better?
Yes.
Yeah, the people have got no idea what we're on about. We'll probably explain as the show goes on. So it's a movie podcast by myself, Paul Marsh, and Jon Brown with me.
Indeed. And what a pleasure it is to be recording this with you today.
So if you want to find us on social media, the show's social media, which we now have,
Indeed,
on across all things at the moment. So what have we got? We've got Facebook, Twitter, Insta, TikTok at the moment. I'm sure one or two more things
which
will
are
come.
all places where you can find Paul doing crazy things in aid of the podcast, and I may occasionally show my face. So I'm sorry in advance for that. If
you want to find us on social media, it's quite simply Need a Bigger Pod.
Need a bigger pod.
That's it. Need a bigger pod. If you want to find us personally, I'm at Paul Swampy Marsh.
Swampy. Yeah. There's a story to be told there, isn't there?
Not really. It's a Navy thing. Swampy Marsh.
Right.
It's a boring story. It's a story, but it's a boring story.
I'm kind of invested, but okay. We'll make a note to circle back around to that, because I've always been curious as to why you were called Swampy, and I wondered if it was anything, interesting.
No, it's honestly not. It's honestly not.
Did you live a checkered life?
No. It's really, really boring.
At Paul Swampy Marsh on Twitter, at Paul Swampy Marsh on Insta, Paul Marsh on Facebook, and I am at Jon Brown TV. That's Jon Brown TV. At Jon Brown TV on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Now, whilst this is the first episode, just remember, if you do like what you hear, probably not in the first, couple of minutes of what we've done already, but if you like what you hear coming up, just remember to like, share, subscribe, all the usual bits and pieces.
Yes, indeed, because we will, well, first of all, Paul will learn to not pop on the mic, which makes it much easier for him to edit later, and I'll stop saying indeed. Should we agree on those two things?
I can't agree to anything at the moment.
Let's work on those moving
over
forward.
The course of a few weeks, maybe. But yeah. So if you don't know what John's getting at, when you say the word or the letter P,
you say it.
When you say P into a microphone,
P. See,
the P pops
because you're aiming your face at the.
Because I'm talking directly into the microphone. However, after years of training, John has got this twitch where he turns his head.
It's not a twitch. I just turn my head like that.
He turns his head away from the mic every time he says.
I'm looking at you and I'm talking to you and I'm saying P.
Yeah,
it's very straightforward.
So it is something that I need to do, and John is gonna promise to try and say indeed.
I am very sorry for lo-fi bullying you about the pops. I apologise.
Right, so coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about a couple of news pieces that have happened over the last few days. We're going to be looking at trailers because it was the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Ah, yes, always good for brand new trailers and amazing new insights into some of the biggest films to come later this year, or imminently, actually. Quite a lot of them are quite imminent.
Very new. We're going to be looking ahead at this week's releases. We're going to be talking about the films that we have seen, including Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I'm not going to say indeed.
Yeah, including Inspection and including Sharper as well. So we're going to talk about those a little bit later. We're going to be looking at what's streaming, what's coming out on home entertainment, DVDs, etc. And we're going to be talking to the producer and the director of 3 Day Millionaire, which is a UK film that we both absolutely love.
Oh, I love that movie. And the greatest thing about that is it's done a tour of cinemas, just to give you a little bit of context. And it's done very well on that tour, and they went touring with it. But now it's just been commissioned to Netflix, for want of a better description, but which is a huge deal for the guys. So it'd be great to just kind of hear about their process and talk more about the film.
Well, I mean, we both saw it early doors, which we were very lucky to do, and I think because of the film it is, and it didn't have a really wide release. I really think that this film is going to pick up a lot of pace now that it's on Netflix. It's coming to Netflix, I believe, on the 28th of February.
Indeed. See, I did it again.
Yeah.
I need to. It's because I said I wouldn't say it. Now I'm going to say it a lot. I promise you I will not say it again. Ready? Mark the time. I'm not saying it anymore. We're 5 minutes in. I'm saying nothing.
No, don't say nothing for the rest of the podcast.
Oh, no, of course I won't say nothing for the rest of the
be...
podcast. I'm just not going to say indeed. I don't know why I'm saying indeed every 5 seconds. I think it's because I just had a conversation with someone that says it a lot.
A lot. It's not me. So that's coming out on Netflix. So we're very much looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that reaching a much bigger audience. And a couple of other pieces of news is it's been announced there is another Riddick movie coming, Riddick Furia. Now I'm going to mess this up, and you're going to have to correct me with director David Twohy.
I think so.
Twohy and Vin Diesel, of course. Now, we literally spoke about this yesterday. I didn't even realise that there was a third instalment of Riddick. I obviously knew Pitch Black, which is fantastic. I absolutely love it. And then Chronicles came out, which I think we can all agree is not a good film. And I didn't know that Riddick had come out a few years ago.
Yeah, there was a trilogy of motion pictures. There was a very good animation, and there was an excellent video game. I think that obviously Fast and the Furious is the thing that that I think is Vin's legacy, it's fair to say. But actually, when you look at it closely, I would argue that Riddick is Vin's legacy, because that's Fast is a massive juggernaut.
It's an ensemble as well, isn't it?
It is ensemble, exactly that. Whereas Riddick is very much
centered on Vin.
And that's I think it's a great character for him, and they are really good movies. And not you, the second one, but they are generally. It's an excellent franchise, and it's really, if you're a fan of action cinema, then that's especially sci-fi action cinema and kind of dystopian futures, etc., then it really hits the mark in terms of great films that your dad used to like on video. Proper action romps.
And the last piece of news that's come out literally just before we went to air is it's been announced that Tom Holland is set to play Fred Astaire in a new biopic.
Interesting take on that is I heard it was Jamie Bell.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. I mean, I think we can all agree that Tom Holland is a phenomenal actor.
Either one of them would be fantastic as Fred Astaire. Either one of them. They're both excellent actors, and they're we know that they're capable in terms of. Have they both been Billy Elliot? I think have they both been Billy Elliot?
Really? When was Tom Holland Billy Elliot?
Do you know what? I thought I read somewhere that Tom was Billy Elliot. We'll look that up. I'm sure he was in a production of Billy Elliot. But anyway, I know they can both dance very, very well. Well,
at the end of the day, if you're going to play Fred Astaire, that is one of the main things that you're going to need to be able to do.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to need to be able to pull off some moves.
For sure. And like I said, I think both of them could capably take on that role with gusto. So I look forward to either one of them playing that role.
Right, now looking ahead to trailers, like we say, we are recording on a Tuesday at the moment. Super Bowl was on Sunday, and it feels like a whole movie's worth, about an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of trailers, all dropped in one night.
You doubled right into this, haven't you? You've been on a trailer mission. How did it turn out?
Oh, do you know what? This is the great thing about all of these films. So we've got a list of 10 films here. And they all seem really, really good films that I really, really can't wait to see. So we're going to start with Creed 3.
Yes, well, so that's Michael B. Jordan following Stallone's footsteps, really, because obviously with Rocky, when Rocky came out, it wasn't directed by Sly, but he wrote it, he produced it, he was the star. There's a whole other podcast about the history of Rocky and how that came to be, which is an amazing inspirational story, by the way. However, that being said, I think there were, and I can't remember exactly which, I'm gonna say 2, 3, 4 and 6 were Stallone.
Okay.
Maybe 3, 4 and 6. Anyway, Stallone then went from writing, producing and starring to directing Rocky. And so Creed, of course, is essentially this generation's Rocky, to the point where they are linked in the story, in that it's Adonis Creed is Apollo Creed's son, and Rocky, of course, in Creed mentored him, took him on, treated him as his own, and that was a really amazing tale. Really enjoyed that. Creed 2, directed by Stephen Cable Jr., was awesome as well, which was kind of a spiritual sequel to Rocky 4. Now, and of course Creed was directed by Ryan Coogler, the amazing Ryan Coogler. So No, I think so with Creed 3, Ryan Coogler is still producing. I think Stallone is still producing. They're still involved in they've kind of really let Michael Jordan sort of step forward and come into his own space and test his mettle and show his worth as a director. And I'm hearing many, many good things about the job he's done. And what better film for him to kick off his career behind a camera than something that he's embodied and personified for the last few years. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's done, because as I say, for Stallone, it went really well. So, yeah.
Okay, now the next film that we're going to talk about, I think we got some mixed feelings on. So we're going to talk about The Flash.
Okay.
Now, obviously, you know, we all kind of got excited by the Batman because there are not one but two Batmans in this film.
Yeah, so the Batman obviously is a separate thing. So
Yes.
just to catch anyone up on the James Gunn thing, I won't go into it because it goes on forever, but James Gunn and Peter Safran have now taken over DC Films. And so their plan is to reset the DC film universe, essentially.
But that doesn't include the Batman.
No,
with
so
Robert
what they're
Pattinson.
going to do is they're going to... you'd have to look it up to be more specific. However, they plan to go up to The Flash, which is the movie we've just seen the trailer for, and then they're going to reset the timeline. Comic fans will know about Flashpoint, the very famous Flash story. I think, and DC story, I think what they're going to do is use the Flash as a flashpoint, because we're seeing multiversal, I know that's a Marvel thing, but do you know what I mean? We're seeing multi-dimensional behaviours going on in the trailer. So I think they're going to use this as a reset point for James Gunn's DC universe to start kicking in. And so it will be one universe with one timeline. All the same actors will play the same characters. We won't have multiple Batmen and multiple Flashes and all this kind of stuff. They're going to cast people as these, not just legacy characters, but we're going to bring in new unknown characters, which of course James Gunn is very good at doing with Guardians of the Galaxy, which we'll get to in a bit. So, you know, he's going to bring all these characters in and just have a consistency, a cohesiveness to it, that we're going to see the same faces playing the same characters. And then anything else that doesn't quite fit under that. So, for example, Joker. For example, The Batman with Robert Pattinson.
Yep.
Those things are going to be fit into a bracket called DC Elseworlds. So it's kind of like things happening in different universes, so to speak. So with The Flash, this is kind of them trying to tie up the current DC universe and I guess prepare for the new one. And that's why we get this time travel, time jumping going on in this new one. And of course, we see He Who Shall Not Be Named playing The Flash, dealing with multiple versions of Batman. We see Ben Affleck as Batman, but we see the return of Michael Keaton's Batman as well.
I suppose the question is if this film wasn't this film and it was something else, and it didn't have Ben Affleck and it didn't have Michael Keaton and it didn't have Michael Shannon in it, would it have gone the same way as is it Batgirl that got scrapped?
No. I mean, that's a really difficult conversation that could probably go on for a long time, but in summary, I would say there are a lot of... I don't believe for a second that Batgirl was as terrible as anyone's making it out to be, because the directors of Batgirl have made absolutely stunning films, both small and large, and television prior to this. I don't think for a second it was. I'm not entirely certain or sure, and I'm baffled as to why that didn't really get off the ground. With this, and I know it makes no sense because everybody involved with Batgirl were brilliant, very talented, very gifted people, and they're all, you know, no one in there's got any shady pasts or anything like that. But, and then of course we've got The Flash and that thing we won't go into with the person we won't name. The reason I think The Flash is still coming out, and to answer your question, is regardless of He Who Shall Not Be Named, this movie hinges on a massive change in the fabric of the, not just within the story about changing the fabric of time and all that kind of stuff, but what it does is, from in a real world standpoint, this allows, because of the Flashpoint storyline, it allows them to literally on screen reset and start over. That's what they're using this. They're using this as a reset point. And they're saying, well, yeah, there's controversy, there's this, there's that. But without this movie, what happens next won't make any sense.
Right.
So it's a conduit to the future of the DC universe, which, of course, will feature new actors playing characters we know, some new characters that wider commercial audiences may not know, and kicks off a new era of DC under James Gunn. And, of course, anybody that's watched anything of James Gunn's over at Marvel will know that he's very, very good at this. I know there's a lot of speculation about DC have let us down before, but James Gunn never has. And I'll say that.
No, I agree. Right, moving on to some big blockbusters now. Dungeons and Dragons.
Really, I've known about this for a very, very, very long time, and it's been really cool to... I won't go into how. We'll reveal that later down the line. But, yeah, really looking forward to this because I've heard and seen many, many good things. And I think this is a really interesting take on... I can't say this with any confidence because, honestly... I don't know, but from what I'm seeing, it feels very much... It's not based on the 80s cartoon.
Right.
However, from what I can tell... And by the way, for the record, this is my opinion. This is not fact. My opinion is, my guesswork is, this looks a lot like the game, the board game, or the role-playing game...
Yeah.
...that the cartoon...
Came from.
Was based on. So it's drawn from the kind of cut from the same cloth, I think. And I'm seeing little hints in the trailer that we might see Venger in there. Is that Venger in there? I don't know. But ultimately, we're getting this cool version of a particular game, as I understand it. I'm not a D&D guy, but I've got many, many friends who are, and they tell me that this is a very exciting time to be a Dungeons and Dragons fan, and this is actually the movie that they're really looking forward to. Because we've had a couple of Dungeons and Dragons movies in the past, and... Yeah. But this is the source, apparently, according to my friends in the D&D realm.
I have to be honest, I am excited about this one. But something I'm really excited about is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
This is, met with such controversy about...
The de-aging?
Not just the de-aging, but the aging. It's like, he's too old and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's Harrison Ford, man.
Okay, right. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So at the moment, you've got obviously Yellowstone 1923, which features Harrison Ford, and he's phenomenal in it.
And you love Taylor Sheridan.
I do very much so. But he plays a very old man who is walking around with a walking stick at the moment and can barely move and everything else like that. And then you take this exact same man who probably literally, I don't know what got filmed first, but one, and then he went to the other one and is then playing Indy, where he's going to be running around and jumping and etc.
Yeah, and he's Harrison Ford.
I agree. Like I say,
this ends all arguments. He is Harrison Ford.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think the de-aging from what we've seen in the trailers looks a hell of a lot better than what we had in The Irishman, The Irishman was a brilliant film, let down by certain things to do with the de-aging.
Well, this is Disney's de-aging.
Yes.
So essentially, I know obviously it's Lucasfilm, but it is a Disney production in essence, because Disney now own Lucasfilm and have done for coming off 10 years now, I think. But anyway, the point being that Disney's we've affectionately nicknamed in our office as Disney Tech, and what that means is it's Disney de-aging technology, and Disney's de-aging technology has been consistently amazing, which is why, and I think if you look up online, Harrison Ford did a chat show interview recently where he explained how they were able to do that, and they do things like he walks around set with a kind of mask on with all the little bobbles so they can draw on his face, but ultimately they use stock footage from previous films of the time, so the age they're trying to get him down to, they will then go and seek out stock film from that period.
I would hazard it was probably around the other Indiana films.
Yeah, exactly. And so around, Lucasfilm have obviously got acres and acres of footage that was shot, that Spielberg shot around that time when he would have been the right age for the age he's supposed to be in this film, and they just take that footage and then they use technology to basically make him look the way he looks, and it's incredible the way it's done, but it looks really effective. I don't think it looks terrible. I think it looks really, really good from a technical standpoint, but also I think the film's going to be really interesting. Dial of Destiny suggests it may well be about some kind of time travel, although I don't think it's time travel in essence, because I think what we're seeing young Indy is flashback, or younger Indy is flashback. That's what it
comes across as,
It's flashback. I think the TV spot in the Super Bowl gave us a little bit more insight into the fact that Mads Mikkelsen's character and Indy know each other from the past. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. The thing to take away here, and every time anybody says, I don't know about, he's too old, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, is this. It's directed by James Mangold.
Yeah,
and every single James Mangold film, be it part of a franchise, like Logan, or not, Walk the Line, has been incredible.
Completely agree. And also what I was going to say is, obviously, we all know that the Crystal Skull wasn't particularly good. I don't think that Harrison Ford would come back to play Indy if this wasn't going to be a knock it out the park film.
Exactly, and there's many examples of Harrison Ford in the past saying he's probably since the mid-'80s has been in a position to choose what he wants to do next in terms of, does this interest me enough for me to want to engage in this? And I know from seeing previous interviews with him that he has to really dig the script. You know, he has to be really into it. And this has to have had something about, I think just working with James Mangold is, for me, if I was an actor of any stature, working with James Mangold would be a thrill.
Yeah.
So and he's very proud of this film, you know, and to the point where he's been seen as emotional when talking about this film.
Harrison Ford?
Absolutely.
Wow.
If you see, I can't remember where I saw it, but there was a thing where they presented, it might have been a Comic-Con or something of that description, but they presented some footage to people for the first time, and he was seeming very emotional about how proud he was of the film. So I don't know. These things all point to greatness.
Right, I'm going to say the title of the next film and then I'm going to let you go, but I will remind you that we really can't go for much longer than an hour. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And go.
You're going to leave this with me, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm literally going to make a cup of tea. Do you want anything from the cafe downstairs?
Show me on the diagram where Marvel touched you as a child, Paul. Okay. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it is obviously the third in a trilogy of amazing, outstanding films. So this is James Gunn's last hurrah in the Marvel Universe as far as we know. After this,
I would imagine so.
Yeah, after this, he's going to be fully tired. You know, he already is. Yeah. You know, now the boss of DC Films, so he's going to be very busy over the fence working on brand new awesome projects, which we just discussed. So this is really the closing of his. In reality, this is the end of his time at Marvel. So he's going to go out with a huge bang, and I've been reliably informed that it is an epic conclusion to the Guardians universe. Now, of course, these were characters that us Marvel fans obviously knew about these characters for a number of decades, but the greatest thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy was it allowed James Gunn to bring these really great characters to a wider audience, some of whom had only heard about them for the first time because of the films.
Oh, yeah, I'd imagine the vast majority of people did.
And that got people reading comics again, which was, fantastic. So this is the conclusion. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know any more than anybody else does other than what's in that trailer, but it's looking very, very exciting. It's looking like it's going to be emotional. For sure it's going to be emotional, because you have to remember that for them it's going to be emotional. This is the last time they're going to do it. For now, right in this moment, this is the end. So you've got to imagine a lot of emotion is imbued within that from a real life standpoint, because they're going to be all sorry to say goodbye to each other. In this context, of course, there's other Marvel films we're expecting later down the line. Who knows, a Guardian or two may pop up in those. But for now, this is the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy film series as we know it. So it's going to be climactic, it's going to be epic, it's going to be emotional, it's going to be amazing, and I am not going to be okay.
I was just going to say, do you want to take a minute?
So yeah, but again, more on that. We'll delve deeper in all the films we've just spoke about. We'll delve deeper into them at the time, and probably bring you a few guests from those films as well.
Now, moving on to a film that I am very excited about is Air.
I love it. Do you know what? I've said I love Ben Affleck as an actor, but I really dig him as a director. Like some of his work as a filmmate, I love The Town. What a film that is. Argo.
Love it.
He is a phenomenal director. And I really, really enjoy it when he is a storyteller.
This trailer had me. This trailer has got me hook, line and sinker. I am all in. I really, really can't wait to see this film. Obviously, we all know the story of Michael Jordan and what a phenomenal athlete he was, and we know obviously about the Nike Air Jordan, and it's one of the biggest selling trainers around the world. So it's going to be so great to see how it all came around. And
well, yeah, this is, and for me, that's it. Like, because obviously, you and I are of similar age, or similar generation, so grew up at the time when the Air Jordan was the shoe to have.
Yeah.
And I remember the legacy of Michael Jordan. I remember, I loved a Nike trainer. Or is it Nike?
Nike.
It's
Nike.
It's the subject with debate, wasn't it?
There's no debate.
But I love it. I love a Nike trainer, and so I grew up wearing Nike sweatshirts and Nike trainers, and when we could afford them, of course. But so I was very excited to see this because I just thought, I don't know that story. I know of Michael Jordan. I know of the legacy of Nike. I know of the Air Jordan, but I don't know how all these things came to be. And to be able to have that told in a story by Ben Affleck, who's a great storyteller, as I said, and be in it also with his old pal Matt Damon. And let's remember, whenever those two are together in anything, they are dynamite.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. And a whole host of other phenomenal actors in there as well. Viola Davis is just as Michael Jordan's mother.
She can do no wrong in my eyes.
Amazing. Truly, truly amazing.
She is
do you know
phenomenal.
what this reminds me of? This reminds me a little bit of The Founder.
I really like The Founder.
I love The Founder.
But I love Michael Keaton. I can literally watch Michael Keaton in anything.
But again, so we all, McDonald's, some of us eat it weekly or monthly or whatever it is, and we all know McDonald's. Do you know how it started? You didn't have a clue until you saw The Founder.
He was a bit of a sod as well.
He was, Ray Kroc was an interesting character. Right, moving on.
Very well played, though. If you haven't seen The Founder, seek it out. It's a very good film.
Very good. Right, moving on to Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Now, again, I really like Shazam, the first film. Really, really looking forward to seeing this. Really looking forward to see Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren is an absolute gem. She is a national treasure in this country.
Yeah.
And again, someone who you can watch in literally anything. Well, what I love most about Helen Mirren is she is more than happy to be one moment trading the boards, absolutely killing it, knocking out of the park in a West End play, and then in the next moment she will be in a comic book movie or a fast movie, or she'll have her tongue firmly in her cheek. And the best part about that is she is having the best time doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I mentioned 1923 earlier. She plays opposite Harrison Ford in 19, and she's phenomenal in it. So Shazam, that looks great. I think it's going to be another smash. And the great thing is about this is, I know you think that I Marvel bash. I don't Marvel bash. Marvel. So obviously, I've got young kids. So my kids, I've got a 9-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. My boy is completely all in on Marvel. He loves Marvel, whereas my girl, not so much. Some things she does, some things she doesn't. Mm-hmm. They both love Shazam because it's a superhero film. Much like animation, where we say a good animation is aimed at both kids and adults, whereas Shazam is aimed exactly the same. It's aimed for both kids and adults.
Shazam's appeal is because it reminds you of things like The Goonies.
Yes,
and it's got that, and very much by design, it's got that hark back to films that you loved. Or it reminds me a lot of the Warner era of the 80s with The Goonies and Gremlins and things that were kind of family focused, but a little bit on the knuckle.
Yes.
Like in terms of certain elements. I mean, Shazam can be very, I mean, the first Shazam gets really dark in places, and that is a credit to its director because he is a fantastic horror director. So it's like when Sam Raimi does a comic book thing, you get those little elements of, or reminders of, this is the man that made Evil Dead. Yeah. And so you get those little bit. I mean, famously, the scene in Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock where he kind of comes to life as Doc Ock, and it's a directly on the nose tribute to Evil Dead, and yet somehow that movie got a PG. And Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, somehow passed for a 12, and yet it's got zombies in it, and so
sign of a great director.
Amazing director. We had him here on Express on our other, wearing our other hat on Express FM when the first Shazam came out, and it was just a great lot, a good time at the cinema. Shazam, it just reminded me of that going to movies on a Saturday in the 80s and watching an adventure story, a superhero story. And so I'm very much looking forward to this one. It does look like it's just got the first one, taken it and dialed it up to like 7,000. and it looks maniacally brilliant and just fun. Let's not take it seriously.
And that's exactly
it's like
what
Black
it is.
Adam.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a fun romp, and I think a lot of those films, I can't sit there and judge Tar by the same mechanics that I'm going to judge Black Adam. Of course not, because you know they're very, very different films. But sometimes you need, and we talked about this before, an eye kebab.
Speaking of eye kebabs, that leads me. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that leads me lovely into the next film.
You know, and I say trailer. Kebab, I pizza, I burger,
Yeah.
I beer. But you know, something that you know is a little bit naughty, but you love the taste. And you'll eat it every Friday night, and that's the thing. You know, you need these or popcorn films or blockbuster movies or things where you just leave any thought processes at the door. Don't overthink it. Just enjoy yourself.
So the next trailer that dropped, splits opinion, Fast X. I don't think there's any nobody sits and watches a Fast and Furious film and goes, yeah, it was okay. You either head over heels in love with it. Or you go, what an absolute load of tripe. So talking about the earlier Fast and Furious films, the new director that came on, Louis Leterrier, he was brought in halfway through with Justin Lin stepping away. He's written the third act, completely rewrote it on a plane. And allegedly, we say these things because obviously we haven't seen the film. This one, although it still has about 20 main characters in it, does back to the origins of the first one, and it is a lot more about street racing.
It does. So Jason Momoa's character appears to be related to the villain in Fast 5. That's how I think this is connected. But also we're seeing
the one in Brazil.
Right,
yes,
but I think,
yes.
but we also, is that Rita Moreno we saw there in the trailer as well? The legend. I think she's playing the Mama Toretto, which is an interesting, an interesting addition. And then of course Brie Larson's in it, which I saw.
This is why I say 20, because I think there are. If you went through the cast list, there must be 20 big, well-known actors.
Yeah, for sure. So, and Louis Leterrier, he directed The Incredible Hulk, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you got me on that one. I'm not sure.
I'm sure he did. Look it up. Go on, look it up. You know you want.
I'm not going to look it up, but what we are going to do, we're going to.
I'm certain he directed The Incredible Hulk, which was Edward Norton's Hulk movie, which was superb. So yeah, I mean he can handle a franchise.
We have got 2 more trailers to get through, so let's get through them as quick as we can.
Yep.
Transformers, the latest Transformers installment.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I don't know too much about it apart from the fact that Yannick Bontemps is composing it, and he is awesome, and we love him. He's been on my show before now, and looking forward to getting him back for that. It appears to be set in the 80s, because all the Transformers in it are all the Transformers I remember, or G1 as we used to call them, Generation 1. Optimus Prime's looking a lot like the one I had as a toy as a child, and there's like Mirages in there, the Porsche, and Bumblebee's in there, and I'm kind of wondering if this is set in the 80s.
It's some sort of prequel maybe,
or a sequel to Bumblebee, which was, of course was also
right, okay.
Bumblebee was phenomenal. I know Transformers, again, eye candy, right? But, and let's be honest with you, they've not been great, have they?
Hit and miss. Let's say hit and miss.
First one's pretty cool. I got a lot of love for Bumblebee. I think Bumblebee was when you see Bumblebee, you're kind of like, oh no, this is a Transformers movie. If you're a kid from the 80s, that's a Transformers movie. I think this is looking like it's a sequel to that, and it's from the director of Creed 2.
And moving on to our final trailer, which literally has just dropped, it's the Children of the Corn remake from the 80s.
This is all on you, buddy. You found this right before I walked through the door.
Yeah,
so.
Well, it's just a strange one, because obviously the vast majority of people know about Children of the Corn. Horror, as we know, is one of the genres doing very, very well at the cinema now. So are we going to see a spate of remakes and redos and everything else from the 80s from horror films? Obviously, there's been a few. Fright Night was a very good remake. That did very, very well.
I like that.
Yeah, it was very good. And this is made by Shudder, you know, the horror movie app.
Okay, so it's going to come to the app.
It will go to the app eventually, but it is also getting a cinema release as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, very good. Something different, because rather than it going... Because when I saw Shudder, my first immediate thought was, this is going straight to Shudder. But then at the end, it's getting a worldwide release, which is good. And if you don't know the story of the Children of the Corn, you know, it's...
It was Linda Hamilton, wasn't it?
The original, I'm not sure on that one. But basically, a bunch
I've
of
not
kids.
seen it in a while.
There's something out there in the corn, and that is affecting the children, and they kind of pledge their loyalty to this thing that's out there in the corn. And to kind of put it bluntly, they decide that they need to kill all of their parents.
It's very Village of the Damned, isn't it?
Yeah.
As I recall.
Then obviously there's just one sane person who ends up sort of trying to stop the whole thing. But I think
also like Village of the Damned.
I think the one thing that you're going to get, obviously, from the 80s up to 2023 is obviously going to be visually gory and graphics and all of that sort of things. I think you're going to see a lot more than what you would have done in the 80s, where things were left up to our imagination. I think you're going to get probably a little bit more CGI and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Well, like we've just had a Hellraiser reboot, which went to Hulu in the States, and I don't know if it's here yet, or has it been here yet? It may well have been here yet. But however, we had a Hellraiser reboot, and we kind of had a gender swap in terms of who played Pinhead and so on and so forth, and that worked really, really well. As far as I'm aware, by many accounts. I know many Hellraiser fans in the States, and they all told me they loved it. So maybe it is. I don't know. Is it the time? I think it's. I mean, this happens. We have this conversation almost always, and I've had this conversation many times in the last 20 years. When a sequel to something comes, or a remake of something comes, and we say, "Did we need it?" I'm always on the fence, because on the one hand, I do like to delve back into universes. If there's great stories within these realms or franchises of storytelling, and there's more stories to be told, that's good. If we're kind of bringing this to a new audience for the first time, and that makes them go back,
yes,
that's a good thing as well. But also, I'm on the fence in terms of, on the other side of that fence is me saying there are so many great stories out there that have not been discovered yet.
A lot of films are getting remade, and if they are something, so let's take Children of the Corn, which is a bit of a cult classic. It wasn't a smash.
No, I only ever remember. Did it even go to the cinema in the 80s? I only ever remember it being a video
VHS,
video nasty. Yeah.
So something like that, which you would say the average Joe that goes to the cinema probably doesn't know about that. So it's probably okay to be remade. And this may put it out to certainly a new generation, but even a wider audience. And then you take something like White Men Can't Jump, which is going to get a re-release very shortly. And I think to myself, what? Yeah, exactly. You can't sort of remake greatness. We all know how amazing the original White Men Can't Jump is. And you take that into 2023 and you go, surely you just physically cannot make that film any better than what it was made. I completely agree. So this is my point being is I will go and watch this film and I will see it and I will take it on face value. It'd be difficult to not think about the original, but you will judge it on face value.
Is Woody or is he?
Are they in it?
Because he's in a whole nother. He's in or Wesley. Is Wesley or Woody in the movie?
It's not been advertised. I don't know. I don't want to say no and then they turn up.
Because I kind of feel like that would work if they're doing that thing that a lot of things are doing right now, which is they create
like Ghostbusters.
Exactly that. It's a passing of the torch. That's why Ghostbusters Afterlife works so well. As
far as I'm aware, no. I don't want to say no 100%. But as far as I'm aware, no. Right, we do need to move on.
Okay.
So coming out this week, we have Marcel the Shell with the Shoes On. We have Golgape, Atomic Hope, Nostalgia, The Sun, and Make Me Famous. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On looks very, very interesting. If you don't know about it, it's shot from the point of somebody making a documentary about this
stop motion.
It's a stop motion shell. And it talks, and it's real, and it has one eye, and it's discovering the world. And then, while he's filming all of this, he puts it all on social media, and Marcel becomes social media famous and goes viral. And Marcel can't understand all of this. So everything that's happening is completely new. Imagine right now you are an alien and you are seeing the world for the first time and everything that happens in it. Well, that's Marcel. And he's learning everything for the first time. And it comes across as very interesting and very sweet. Whether it works as an hour and 30-minute piece of film, I really don't know, but it looks very interesting. It looks very sweet.
It's nominated for like all the awards.
Yeah,
I can just you telling me that I can see why. There's a cuteness level to that, I think, which is its appeal.
And it's voiced by, Marcel is voiced by Jenny. Is it Jenny Slate or Jenny Slater?
Jenny Slate.
Jenny Slate, yeah. It's voiced by Jenny Slate. And obviously, again, everything she touches tends to turn to gold because she's amazing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I know you just mentioned The Sun there, which, of course, is Florian Zeller's new film starring Hugh Jackman, and Samantha Hopkins, I believe, is also in that as well. I am looking forward to see that. Florian Zeller did very, very well with his previous film. So, yes. But nonetheless, I am looking forward to see it. We'll talk more about those, the films that we just listed. More news on those as we have them. So we will discuss those films in more depth as we see them.
Okay, right. So moving on to reviews. And of course, this week is the big release of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania.
Nearly. You got there. I'm amazed. You got very close. I didn't know how you were going to go with that because you're not traditionally a Marvel guy, are you? So you that was very well researched.
That is right, isn't it? It's Quantumania.
Quantumania.
So is it Ant-Man and the Wasp?
No, it's Quantumania because they're in the quantum realm.
Yeah, but why is it Ant and not Ant and Ant?
Ant,
and not
because
on?
Ant is pronounced Ant.
Well, I'm going to call it Ant-Man and the Quantumania.
No, it's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, before anybody goes to pause this or fast forward it or put their fingers in their ears, this will be... I am not listening to Jeffrey! This is entirely spoiler-free. So I will only mention things that you will hear in the trailer. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is the latest from Marvel Studios. It's part of the grander MCU, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the next, I think it's the beginning of Phase 5, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is the beginning of Phase 5. So this is how we kick off Phase 5 and how we move into, what a lot of people are hoping for as the Kang Dynasty. A lot of rumours abound about that, and lots of Marvel fans very excited about the Kang Dynasty, with Kang, of course, played by the amazing Jonathan Majors.
I thought wasn't Kang one of the baddies in the Turtles or something?
That's Krang.
Krang!
That was Krang.
Yeah.
So Kang is a villain from Marvel lore, and played excellently by Jonathan Majors. But in this, so again, I promised no spoilers, so I'll set this up as per whatever you can find in an available trailer. But Paul Rudd returns, of course, as Scott Lang, a.k.a. Ant-Man. He is enjoying his life as a superhero. Everything's great. Everything's rosy. Okay. His local coffee house manager mistakes him for Spider-Man.
Which is in the trailer and is very funny.
But it's comic. It's down to earth. And this one of the things I love about the Ant-Man movies are that this is figuratively and literally about the little guy, and his history. He's an ex-con. He's divorced. He has a daughter, and he's come from. His arc is great because he's got that was almost written off really, and then found his purpose, and he has this beautiful story arc among the Marvel universe in which he becomes a hero, and I love that. And one of the things I love about the other two, Ant-Man and the Wasp, also directed by Peyton Reed. So this is the third Ant-Man film from the same director. Kind of smallness about it. It's a little guy in a big world, and there's a sitcom kind of attitude about those movies which I enjoy. It's almost like watching Friends but with superheroes.
Okay.
Because it's got that comedy. The comedy beats are great.
Yep.
In the previous two films, the comedy beats are great. And they're in real world scenarios, but they're doing big things. Like classic example for anyone that's seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second one, where he ends up turning into Big Ant-Man and then kind of surfing on a lorry, which is kind of awesome. But little things like that, little touches like that make it comic. The beats are really good. It's tongue in its cheek, comic in the very sense of the word comic book. And of course, he's not what we would call a legacy character, know. So it's one of these examples where we took he's still a huge character, but we've taken him and not as huge as, let's say, Spider-Man or Iron Man or whatever, and put him into the cinematic universe, and it works. Paul Rudd, of course, is magical anyway. I could watch him in literally anything.
Yeah, who doesn't love Paul Rudd?
So building up to that, what we've got in the setup is that we find him enjoying his life, but really the things he's kind of reflecting on are yes, saving the world and enjoying the famosity that comes with being a hero in his local area. People recognise him when he walks down the street. It's a pretty sweet life. His only real holdback is that he didn't get to spend during the blip. So anyone knows anything about Avengers and Infinity War and Endgame, there's a blip where everybody disappeared for 5 years, or half the universe literally got wiped out for 5 years and then came back. And of course, in that process, he missed valuable time with his daughter Cassie. And so within that, he's kind of reflecting on that time but where he's at in his head, he's in a very good place. You know, his partner, the Wasp, Hope, played by Evangeline Lilly, and her parents, of course, who are played by Michael Douglas, who plays Hank Pym, who in the comic books was one of the original Ant-Men, so to speak, and his wife, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, Janet. So they've got this real kind of family dynamic going on, and it's a really good rooted place to start the movie. It's kind of sweet, actually. You know, there's the comedy beats, we've got the nice family moments, and then all hell breaks loose. So ultimately, Cassie, or Peanut, as Scott refers to his daughter in a very loving way, has been working on a science project with her new granddad, so to speak, Michael Douglas, Hank Pym. They've been secretly working on a project which is a MacGuffin that essentially sends a signal down to a place called the quantum realm. And the idea is that you can send a signal down to the quantum realm and get a signal back from the quantum realm. Now, everybody's pretty thrilled about this concept, apart from one person, and that's Janet, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who spent 30 years trapped down there and really doesn't want anyone to have anything to do with the quantum realm ever again. And of course, this sets off a chain of events in which they all get trapped down in the quantum realm. The problem with that is, and the reason why Michelle Pfeiffer is so petrified of the quantum realm, is because of our big bad, which is Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors.
You're an interesting man. Scott Lang.
I don't know who you are, but you've made a big mistake, okay? I'm an Avenger. I've called the other Avengers.
You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?
What?
They all blur together after a while.
Okay, so it all sounds good so far. So the question is, whereabouts on the scale are we looking? Are we looking at the top end? Are we looking at the bottom end?
Okay, so let's start with what I didn't like. I mentioned to you before, so it's a big, grand adventure in the traditional Marvel sense. And that is what you come for, right? That's what you're going for. There are things I like and things I don't like. I'll start with what I don't like, as always. The thing about Ant-Man that made it so good, like I mentioned earlier to you, is that there was that sitcom element, that kind of funny. It had humour and heart. The first two movies had humour and heart
agreed.
in equal balance. But also they fit perfectly in the comic book realm, and obviously he's in other Marvel films with other Marvel characters, and it all works very beautifully. The problem with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is that this then takes them to a different world. So we've got kind of journey to the centre of the earth, strange world kind of vibes going on. You know, again, we go back to talking about Saturday matinees and Flash Gordon, and there's classic. You can see the inspirations clearly came from there, and of course from the comic books. The problem with that is you then take this out to a much larger universe, a much larger digital playground in terms of like really well done CGI, but you've lost that smallness. You've lost that, and for a guy that his superpower is that he can turn into a very small person. This is a very, very big film, and so it's more on a scale in terms of grandeur with Avengers.
Okay.
And what happens there is you lose that closeness, that you know, him kind of bobbing about San Francisco, saving the day. You've lost that, really, that comedy element, the kind of everyday haphazard guy, almost Buster Keaton-ish in nature, and taking on this much more serious, much more garish, dark and daring adventure. And it's like, well, this feels like an Avengers movie.
Well, that's the gimmick of the whole film with Ant-Man, isn't it? That is literally the gimmick, is that the fact that he can shrink down and escape certain situations and then blow back up.
And fight that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the film.
The other thing is Michael Pena, I think, and forgive my pronunciation, Michael Pena?
Pena,
thank you very much. He's amazing. He's in the first two films.
Yeah.
He is absent from this movie.
Oh, right, okay.
And I kind of feel like him and Paul Rudd, him and Paul Rudd have such a camaraderie in the first two films that we're kind of missing him here. I kind of wish that he was present when they all get sucked down there, because he would then be present in and that would have opened up lots of doors for a real fish out of water scenario.
Would have been nice if, like I always say, somebody crowbarred him into that scene.
Somehow, but just because one of his best traits in the other two movies is that he would like narrate or recap things, and oftentimes he'd get the details wrong,
completely
which made
wrong,
it funny. So, but he's missing from this, so already it's kind of down, and so you're looking to other areas of comic relief. Now, of course, Paul Rudd has excellent comic timing, so you've still got the comedy element from Paul Rudd being there, but I just kind of felt like we get into this world that feels like it's an episode of Rick and Morty, and I mean that both positively and negatively. Negatively in that that's not really, I don't think that should be an Ant-Man movie, but nonetheless positively in that the zaniness of Rick and Morty works here in the quantum realm, but this is an Ant-Man movie. Is
it an Ant-Man movie that isn't an Ant-Man movie?
Kind of, yeah, because it feels, I tell you what it feels more like. It feels more like an episode of Rick and Morty or an episode or a Star Wars movie. It's got a lot in common with things like Star Wars. I mean, this is Marvel Star Wars. Essentially, that's what it reminds me of, Marvel Star Wars. That's what it feels like. Because we've got these new worlds, these new characters, these new races, and all that stuff's amazing, but you're kind of feeling like, hang on a minute, I feel like I'm missing something vital here. And throughout the movie, I was kind of like, I'm really enjoying Paul Rudd. I'm enjoying Evangeline Lilly. I love Michael Douglas. I love Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer, by the way, is amazing in this, because essentially she's kind of the grounded reality of it. She's been in this realm, this universe before. She's been there. She got trapped down there for 30 years, which brings about some comic retelling, which I won't spoil, but there's some things that happen throughout the movie that hark back to her time down there. But she's petrified. She's kind of very scared of what's down there, because she knows what's down there. And so she becomes the reality center of the film, because she's going, no, you don't want this. This is not, oh wow, look, all colourful things and new. No, you don't want this at all, because I know what's coming. You know, so she keeps that beat, and we get more Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie than we did in previous movies, which is never a bad thing. I was
literally just about to say, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Douglas is great. We
want more of him.
Yeah, he's great. He hits all the right beats as Hank Pym, as he has done in previous movies. No criticisms there whatsoever. You've got a great ensemble as well. There are some really solid, brilliant people in this movie, and they're all coming and bringing their best game to this film. The problem with the film is, I've seen this movie so many times before, because when we get down there, it's essentially the same old setup. Our heroes are stranded in a faraway place. They have to kind of learn to adapt and evolve and trust in each other. And obviously there's always some form of disjointedness, or something's happened to make them, or they get separated or whatever, you know. And it's the classic, we put in the middle of a movie, we always put our heroes up in a tree and throw rocks at them, and it's how do they get down from the tree. That's essentially the mechanic, but it's very basic in those beats. I think we've seen better from the previous two movies, and I think that owes a lot to the quiet smallness of the family element and the comedy beats of being a fish out of water in his own town. He is still a fish out of water on a much bigger scale, but I kind of feel like all that's lost in the woo and the ah of the CGI, because the CGI is incredible. But you're in this whole new world, and you're kind of looking around going, this is amazing. And in 3D, I imagine it's even more amazing. But you're kind of like lost in that and going, okay, this is all, it feels like style over substance.
Yeah, I was just about to say, they've taken away from the script, and they've taken away from the story, and they've given it to something that looks very, very pretty, but maybe not a lot of substance. You
know, so we've got all these incredible actors, like Catherine Newton, who plays Cassie. We've got Paul Rudd. We've got Michelle Pfeiffer, as you say, Michael Douglas. And Jonathan Majors, man, he steals every scene. And he's one of the great positives of this movie. Because I kind of feel like when he's not on screen, this is every other sci-fi movie I've ever seen, adventure movie I've ever seen. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, because there's a lot to enjoy here. There's a lot of fun. It feels like a ride, more a ride than a story, by the way. There is a lot to enjoy here. However, there's a lot not to like also, and that's the problem. The thing that sticks with me is that I think we've given way to trying to be much bigger, much louder, much more exciting and ooh and ah, but in that process we've lost that The humorous beats the heartbeats, and it still has humor beats, it still has heartbeats, but I don't think they're as impactful as previous installments. And whenever Jonathan Majors is not on screen, I really want Jonathan Majors back, because he is absolutely oozing brilliance. He plays an amazing villain, and he's just soaking up every scene he is in. Absolutely. So
does he box Paul Rudd? Does he box Ant-Man?
They have a bit of a scrap.
Is there a Creed crossover in this? Crossover?
Well, I'm really looking forward to Creed as well. I think Jonathan Majors is one to watch for sure.
Is he going to come into the boxing ring in Creed in his full Ant-Man outfit? Is he going to turn up as Kang?
I think there's a Disney Warner rights issue going on there. But no, so yeah, there's, like I said, if you want something with a lot of bang and a lot of pop and a lot of fizz and a lot of wow, and that's what you're going to the cinema for, blockbuster popcorn adventure, yes, this movie has that in absolute spades. But is it, I just I couldn't get away from it. I kept coming back to, this isn't the Ant-Man movie. This isn't the Ant-Man movie or Ant-Man series that I've grown to love over these last couple of years, or nearly 10 years, I think, that make them so brilliant, that comic timing. And like I said, Paul Rudd's still amazing, by the way. He loses nothing here, even though he's in this massive CGI world. He's still Paul Rudd, and he's still amazing. And Michelle Pfeiffer, just off the charts. But despite all that, I still kind of felt like, and it's zippy as well. It's like 2 hours. And which is good. I think it's good that we get back to more kind of sensible running times. And it does that. It's kind of got that whip smart adventure pace in that it's all done in 2 hours and it's all wrapped up nicely. But now I kind of walk away from it going, I kind of wanted more from it, but not in the way that you know what I mean? Like, not in the way that you think and like, oh, that was so amazing, I want more. Always leave them wanting more. I kind of felt like there could have been more to this. And there's also something else which I won't mention, but you'll know as soon as you see it, that I kind of went, oh, wow, what?
Right, okay.
But you'll know it when you see it. It's a good effort. It's a good, solid, strong effort. It's got a lot of bang, a lot of wallop, and it's very funny, and it's got the humour, it's got the heart, but it just feels very, very by the numbers and very every other action, sci-fi, adventure, comic movie that we've ever seen. I don't think it's doing necessarily anything new, and therein lies the problem. Otherwise, though, very, very fun. Do see it in 3D, because I think the world building really lends itself well to 3D.
If I had to guess, I would say that obviously I didn't see this, you saw that. If I had to guess, I would say that you are somewhere between a 3 and a 4 out of 5. That's
very, very good. I'm going to go in for a solid 3 out of 5.
A good 3 out of 5.
A good solid 3 out of 5, which, is a great movie for getting out on a Saturday night too, or a Saturday afternoon even, or when you sit at home, whenever it comes out in the home, beer, pizza, goes on. It's good fun. It's a good ride. There's a lot of fun to be had in it.
Okay, right. Well, let's move on to something else that is coming out for a limited run at cinemas before it heads over to Apple TV, which is Sharper.
Okay.
Now, Sharper is really, really awkward because it makes for terrible podcasts, it makes for terrible radio, because it's one of those films that I need to say, you need to see this and know nothing about it.
Oh, I get that.
So that's my review. That's my review done.
Oh wow! So is it that?
10 seconds of watch it. I'm not telling you anything about it.
Oh really? So okay. So who's in it at least?
Right. Okay. So we've got Justice Smith, who plays one of our main protagonists, and also Brianna Middleton, who I've never seen before, but she is fantastic.
Yes,
in this. She is very, very good in this, and also stars Sebastian Stan.
Bucky from Captain America.
Every time I see Sebastian Stan now, I just can't think of him anything other than Tommy Lee.
I only ever see him as... no, that's not... I wouldn't say that was an entirely fair statement. I have seen him in other stuff and he's been very good in it, but to me, he's Bucky from Captain America.
He's very good. He's very good in everything he does.
He's the Winter Soldier.
He was very good in Fresh. Very good in Fresh.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's very, very good, but he's just...
I think he should be Luke Skywalker.
That's not a bad shout at all. Also stars John Lithgow, Julianne Moore. Can I tell you about this? It's about a con artist. It's about somebody trying to gain advantage over people. It's about putting people in situations that they don't realise that they are in until it's too late. 5 things happen, and as we get to the end of one chapter, it moves on to the next chapter, and you'll link the next chapter in, if that makes sense. So you go, oh, right, that's because of X, Y, and Z.
You have to pay them off.
Told you that's not possible.
How much do they want?
$350,000. And they want it in 4 days, so short of robbing a bank, that's just not going to happen.
I can give you the money.
What?
It's in the bank. I can just go make a withdrawal. You wouldn't have to rob it.
I don't understand. You live at home. You work in a bookstore.
No, I own a bookstore. How do you think I managed to keep it open? All that place does is lose money.
You're saying you have that money just sitting in a bank?
Yeah, more. Yeah, my father has money.
Much the same as Triangle of Sadness. The only thing that I would say against this, and I think it's really awkward because I watched this at home, and whilst obviously we enjoy watching films at home, I much prefer watching films at the cinema because you can absorb your whole world into this 2-hour period or whatever it is and watch this film with no distractions whatsoever. I find it very difficult to watch films at home that are not popcorn films, bang, crash, wallop films because you can easily get distracted that you wouldn't do at the cinema. Now, this film does have certain lulls in it. Where it is obviously heavily into the story and it's building things up.
Yeah, a lot of exposition.
But if you're watching it at home and the washing's just finished, or, you know, the dog is bugging you that you've got to take him out and all of these types of things, it can be very, very difficult. It's got
you can't miss anything.
It's got a very limited cinema run. And what I say is, if it is showing at your local cinema, please, please, please go and watch it at the cinema before you watch it on Apple because you'll have a far better experience.
Yeah.
Now, the great thing about this is you don't see the twist coming. There is one twist at the end that I did see coming, but the other twists I didn't see coming.
Okay.
And it's very rare that happens in this day and age.
Should we talk about any twists whatsoever? Is that in and of itself a spoiler?
No, not really, because I think when you know it's a film about con artists...
Okay, you would expect
it. This whole film is based on who is tricking who. What's the end game?
So it's a shell game, essentially.
Yes, exactly that. It's very good. It could have been better. Now, I am... For a film to be, however, I'm just going to check now. This has got a 2-hour runtime. And I think, again, I'm going to say this about a lot of films, it could have been down to an hour and a half. And if it was a tight an hour and a half...
Oh, you've got an editor's brain,
I think honestly believe you could be raving about this film as being one of the top 10s of the year already. But it's not. It's got 20 minutes of gristle in there that doesn't need to be in there.
Right.
And if you cut it down to a real tight... some real good editing, a real tight hour and a half, you could go, this is phenomenal. Unfortunately, it is that extra little bit that I didn't feel needed to be in there, but it is still very good.
It's still very good. Okay,
it's still very good.
That's all your negatives and all your positives?
Yes, I would say so. My overall take from this is if it is showing at your local cinema, please, please, please take the time to... Listen, Ant-Man is going to be at the cinema for the next month.
It is.
Sharper is only going to be there.
6 weeks at least.
Yeah, Sharper's only going to be there for a week or two if it is at all.
Yeah.
So go and see Sharper this weekend, especially before any spoilers, etc., come out, and then go and see Ant-Man the following week because it's going to be there for a while. Go and see Ant-Man during the week or straight afterwards.
Or go and see them both.
Go and see them both, yeah. Go and see Sharper first. I have to say that I would give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Ooh.
Yes. It's too good to give it a 3. It's maybe not quite a 4.
That's good. Okay.
So
yeah, that's fair. That sounds fair.
That would be that. And moving on to our final film.
Yeah, let's look at The Inspection.
The Inspection, which has got a great cast.
Just to recap on that, the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was directed by Peyton Reed, has a 12A certificate, and it is out now in cinemas in 3D and 2D format. No, it's in cinemas from tomorrow in the 3D and the 2D format, the 17th of February. And Sharper, which you just discussed, which I do believe also has a 15 certificate.
It's also a 15 certificate as well.
That is in limited. It is in a limited run at cinemas. If you can catch it at your local cinema, please do. That was directed by Benjamin Caron, I believe.
Yes, and the very British, the very funny Benjamin, I must say. Yeah, he's directed various episodes of Andor, The Crown as well. Yeah,
very good director. That's Sharper. That's also got a 15 certificate. Limited run in cinemas. Catch it there if you can. Otherwise, it's on Apple TV Plus. Both from tomorrow, Friday, the 17th of February.
Right, moving on to our final film review is The Inspection. Now, The Inspection is about a young gay black man who joins the Marines. And he, unfortunately, faces all of the problems that you would expect a young gay black man to have when he joins the Marines. Now, the one thing that I didn't know when I not walked into this film because I watched it at home.
when you walked into your living room,
yeah.
I didn't know this when I walked into my living room.
It's a true story, and not only is it a true story, but it's a true story that is written by the director, Elegance Bratton.
Oh, okay.
So it is literally straight from the horse's mouth. It happened to him. He wrote it. He's now made the film about it.
Okay, so who's in it?
So we've got Jeremy Pope as Ellis French, who is our main protagonist, and then we have got the phenomenal Gabrielle Union and Bokeem Woodbine. Now, let me tell you, this is not Gabrielle Union as you've ever seen her before.
Oh, really?
Nope. It took me a good couple of minutes of her being on screen to even recognise that it was Gabrielle Union, because obviously Gabrielle Union is a phenomenally beautiful woman, usually in quite glitzy glam roles. However,
and a lot of action roles as well.
Not in this one.
Okay.
She plays French's mother, who works as a prison warden. We find out a little bit later in the show, and they are not an affluent family. They're struggling as a family. She has already kicked French out of home a long time ago, we think, at the start, because of drugs. And when he comes back to basically say, this is all in the trailer, by the way, I need my birth certificate to go and join the Marines. And she very reluctantly lets him into the home. She very reluctantly gives him his birth certificate. So you can tell there's a lot of friction there. And she is a woman who is obviously in her 40s, or maybe even 50s, I'm not entirely sure. But she is playing someone who, as we all know, these people probably works 12-hour shifts, doesn't have time to cook a meal, and
that in a bit,
and you know, you can see there's washing all around the home and everything else like this. And now her son, who she's clearly had a lot of problems with in the past, has walked back into her life, and he tells her that I'm going to join the Marines. And obviously she's very, very sceptical about all this. So he goes into the Marines, where Bokeem Woodbine is his drill sergeant.
Oh, amazing.
He is excellent as that. And
I'll bet.
He is very, very, very harsh. Now, he says a great line later on in the movie where one of the other officers...
Is this a spoiler?
No. He says a line where one of the other officers sticks up for one of them and says, look, I think you were a little bit harsh. I think you're a little bit out of order there. And he says, my job is not to make them men. My job is to make them monsters.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is what...
The American military, ladies and gentlemen.
This is exactly it, and this is what he's saying. It's my job to make these men, these, let's face it, losers, as ruthless as they can possibly be, and just turn them into something more than a killing machine.
You can't stand still to save your life, can you?
He asked you a question, recruit! Sir, this recruit can't stand still when his fellow recruits are pushing him around, sir!
Squat.
Squat! Say aye, sir! Aye, sir!
Squat there and feed the sand, please.
Forward! March! Platoon! Halt!
So the thing is with this film is, and I hate to say this about this, we've seen it all before.
Oh, okay.
And I really, really hate to say this about such a devastating subject, because it clearly lived out by the director, and
it's something that's very personal.
Very personal. It's an awful situation, but I sat throughout the film kind of going, I've seen all this before. And
okay.
And this story will have happened to not only him, but it probably would have happened to hundreds, if not thousands, of other men exactly the same.
Which is incredibly awful.
It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But as you said about many, many things, we have to sit and judge this film on its own merits.
That's true, but I think that you should have... I always have a little bit more awareness when something is true And of course, you still have to kind of weigh, measure, and judge or whatever. But I kind of have a little bit more awareness of that situation. If it's true, what did they go through? How did they go through it? I mean, in terms of what they went through and how they went through it, how clearly and succinctly is that depicted? Are we seeing everything?
Well, so this is my main issue with one of the films. With the film. My main issue with this is I don't feel that there was enough character development at the start. So,
right, okay.
So literally, I would say within less than 10 minutes of the film starting, he's joined the Marines.
Okay, but so you would have maybe liked to have seen more of what happened prior to.
So,
I mean, I guess the focus is what goes on when he's in the Marine Corps.
So we find out later on in the film that his drug issues were not the only reason that his mother kicked him out of the house.
Right, okay.
And this becomes very apparent later on in the movie. And,
okay.
She really doesn't want to show him the love that he so craves and desires.
And deserves.
And yeah, absolutely. And, obviously at the start of the film, he's very much the black sheep. He's very much the outcast, not only to his sergeants, but to the rest of the recruits as well. He isn't given much time of day. And in fact, he's, as you can imagine, treated horrifically and very, very poorly. And they try, not only are the sergeants making it hard for him to do everything, but the rest of the recruits and the rest of the candidates are doing all that they can do to get him out as well.
Okay.
My issue with this is it's very much matter of fact. It's very much documentary style. There's nothing. If this was a documentary of his life, it would probably win like best documentaries at various awards and everything else like that. But it's just very factual, to the point, and I just didn't. I sat there watching it, and there's a lot of great performances in there and everything else like that. And I sat there watching it, and it's terrible.
Is it over dramatized, or is it not dramatized enough?
It's not dramatized enough.
Is that a bad thing, though? Because, I mean, sometimes you do need to be to the point. I think sometimes things, and certainly with matters as serious as and awful as this, I think over-dramatising things might actually harm it.
Well,
make it cheesy.
Okay, let me put it this way. So there's one scene where, again, this is not a spoiler because I'm talking about a black man in the military, a black gay man in the military. He's beaten by his recruits.
Right, okay.
And in that scene, I'm not saying that I didn't feel bad for him, but I did not have tears streaming down my face. I did not have that sick feeling in my stomach.
Okay, that's okay.
Because I didn't feel for the main character.
Because maybe you're not had enough time to connect to him.
Because I wasn't on his side.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
It's just presented to you, and this is it's just the way it is.
I don't. I mean, do you? I mean, we're going off on a massive tangent here. But to be honest with you, would you not feel? I mean, I get that you need to care about characters in any story, true or not true. I understand your viewpoint in that we need to care enough about the characters. But I think if I walked past someone of any race or gender being kicked to death in the street, I'd probably want to get involved in terms of I'd I'd care enough to want to bail that person out of their situation. So I don't know. That's why I can understand when you're coming from. I'd feel terrible for that person.
I like to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to link that to away from this film in that situation. You're walking down the street and you see somebody horrifically being picked on, beaten, whatever else, and you think, I'm going to get involved in that.
In terms of trying to help them.
Yes, right. Then what happens if that then turns on you and they have knives or a bottle or something else like that, and it ends up affecting the rest of your life? Now, that's exactly the same as what these recruits that were kind of on his side, they have to deal with that same thing.
Okay, so they're in a place where they have to turn on him.
If they try to stop this, if they try to help him...
It's peer pressure.
Are those people then going to go for them? That's what
so the whole kind of bullying dynamic.
That's what this has to do.
No, I understand that from a storytelling point of view, of course. But essentially what you're saying is you just the setup, the premise is noble. It's about something that's a very incredibly uncomfortable subject, something that really happened, which makes that even more uncomfortable because you have to think about the bigger picture here, which is that's really going on in our world every day, and that's. And I think good movies should make you think.
Well, I dare say...
Did this make you think?
No.
Okay.
It didn't, and that's the problem. It didn't. We've all seen a lot of films about these types of things, and they are horrific and they're heartbreaking. I dare say that Elegance Bratton was too close to this film, and possibly would have been better writing the script and then giving it to somebody else to go and make.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I guess that could go one of two ways. It could go one way in that someone else could take this and not really give it what it deserves, and essentially that's what you're saying has happened here. But in the hands of another director, it might have been way Hollywood, way over dramatized,
maybe, yeah.
Which then kind of almost is a little bit disrespectful of that person's situation, that person's journey, because it's like, well, we've just turned this into this kind of melodramatic Oscar bait.
So look, I haven't seen the film yet, but I'm going to mention the film Till. Which I haven't seen, but I've read all the reviews.
Many accounts is
supposed to be absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. That's what I was expecting to see here.
Right, okay, I'm with you now.
And in my opinion, it fell short. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Again, similar to my last review in the fact that it's certainly better than a 2 because some of the acting in it is great, but I wouldn't feel comfortable giving it a 3. Okay,
so I'm kind of in the middle. Going back to Ant-Man, that's called The Inspection. That is out. It's got I'm guessing a 15 certificate, given the subject
15,
matter.
Yes.
15 certificate. Yep. The Inspection is in cinemas for a limited run again from tomorrow, February 17th, Friday. Check that out if you want to in cinemas. And I believe it's migrating to digital at some point as well, isn't it?
If you say so.
I believe so. But yeah, check it's exclusively in cinemas for now, as far as I'm aware. So check that out from tomorrow. You're giving that 2.5 out of 5. So on balance, you're right about Ant-Man. I am kind of hovering around that. I think a good solid 3 I'm comfortable with, and that kind of fits for me. So on balance, would we argue that Sharper is the film of the week?
Sharper is definitely the film of this week. I think if I'm telling you to go and see a film this week, I'm telling you to go and see Sharper, mainly because you'll have plenty of opportunities to see Ant-Man, but I think Sharper needs to be seen at a cinema. In fact, I may go and see it at the cinema if I get the chance this weekend.
So you can just fully immerse yourself in it and see if you feel differently about it after seeing it in a cinema. I think there is a massive difference between those two things, which is why I think cinemas are still very important, because there's just something wonderfully unexplainable about the cinema experiences. Well, no, it's not unexplainable, but you know what I mean. Being around other people, the big screen, the sound, and I think you just can't beat or match that. So yeah, that's our cinema releases for this week. Sharper, you are the film of the week. Congratulations. That's on Apple TV+. But as Paul says, go and see it at a cinema if you can.
Okay, so moving on to streaming, and the big film that has come out on Netflix just last week was Your Place or Mine, with Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon.
Now, you saw this.
I did see this because I'm married to somebody that loves these types of films.
Yeah. What's the deal with blaming your wife, dude?
I blame my wife for everything.
Come on.
In all fairness, I probably would have watched it on my own anyway. But,
there it is.
Yeah. Look, I love Ashton Kutcher.
Bring your wife into this.
I've got to take her somewhere. I love Ashton Kutcher. I loved him in The Ranch. I do like him as an actor and as a person. I think he's very, very good. And obviously Reese Witherspoon is absolutely amazing in everything she does, including The Morning Show and countless other films.
Is she doing another Legally Blonde, I read somewhere?
Yes, apparently she is doing another Legally Blonde.
Now see, I'm not going to bring anyone's wife or my own partner into this. I'm going to say I really like Legally Blonde. I love those movies.
I like Legally Blonde. Legally Blonde 2 is one of the worst films ever made.
I just like the whole, the concept.
Awful.
I like there's a stage show, there's everything. I just love it. They're so much fun.
Right, so Your Place...
I don't care who knows that.
Your Place or Mine, we haven't had a generic rom-com for a while. You know, literally ticks all the boxes, does what it says on the tin, and this is that. Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon hook up when they are in their mid-early 20s, and I literally mean they hook up for one night. They then decide the next day that maybe this wasn't such a good idea, let's just be friends.
He's really good at that character, isn't he?
It's funny that, what's he got to be, 45, 50 now, and he's still playing that same part?
Well, I might add.
Oh, yeah. I've literally just gone on record saying I love Ashton Kutcher.
Don't be ageist, Paul. We know how old you
I'm
are.
just incredibly jealous that I'm probably about 5 years younger and he looks so much better than me. But yeah, so they decide the next day, no, we need to keep friends. Well, let's not let this ruin what we have. And then 20 years passed and they are the best of friends. Literally, they talk every day on FaceTime. And even though they have their own relationships and Reese Witherspoon's character grows up and gets married and has a child and everything else.
Wait, back up. Are you telling the story of Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet here? Because it sounds like a lot like them in real life.
Do you think that's where they got the idea for this film?
I don't know, but I know they're the dearest of friends and they have such a wonderful, lovely relationship. But there's a part of me that honestly feels like maybe they were destined. I don't know. Maybe it's an old romantic Titanic.
This is
era
what happens
thing.
when you just see the Titanic, isn't it?
But you see that their love and respect for each other is amazing. That's what you were telling me the story, and I was like, is this the story of Leo and Kate? No. Anyway, go on, move on.
So anyway, they live on opposite sides of the country. Ashton lives in New York. Reese lives in LA, and Reese is coming to New York for a week to take an exam, which is a really crowbar plotline thing, which is very strange. And anyway, she has a babysitter going to look after her son for a week. And then last minute, she gets a job. She can't do it. So that's it. She's going to have to cancel the thing. She's not going to do it. And Ashton says, well, no, you've been there for me every step of the way. I'm going to come to LA. You come to New York. And then come back and we'll see each other, etc., etc.
So it's like parent swap.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, whilst they are there, certain things happen, and then it's the whole do they, don't they, will they, won't they kind of thing. And I have to say, I did not think it was great. I didn't think it was awful, but I didn't think it was great. If I had to say, I would give it a 6 out of 10. There were just far too many cheesy cliches in there for my liking. However, I want to go on record. However, my wife, who this film is completely made for, absolutely loved it and thought it was fantastic.
It does sound like trope heaven.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, I want a little bit more from a rom-com. I have seen, Shotgun Wedding, which I saw a few weeks ago with Jennifer Lopez. I enjoyed that. I thought that was great. It was just something a little bit different than just the paint by numbers that this was.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're reliving the 2000s right now, or maybe the late 90s, because Jennifer Lopez is knocking it out the park again. Ben Affleck's knocking it out the park again, and they're back together. Yeah. So I kind of feel like do you not feel like lately though we've relived a lot of eras, like with Titanic coming back, we've relived the late 90s recently. I've certainly been reliving the late 90s recently with a couple of other things. We won't talk about TikTok. That's for another time. But it's been nice to actually. It's been really nice. I'm like, oh, you're gonna go check. I said, well, I did. I went back and watched, as you know, Titanic again. And it was really good to see it on a big screen again.
I think you'll find that's probably just our age because we lived the 90s, the late 90s, the early noughties, and that period of nostalgia for us and the age that we are, remembering when we were young. Yeah,
but what we're seeing is we're getting new audiences through that because there are much younger audiences that are going to see Jennifer Lopez in Shotgun Wedding because it's on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, Amazon.
So they're going to then go back and go, of course everybody knows J-Lo, but I'm talking about younger generations are going to look back and go, hang on a minute, she's cool.
We were talking about this the other day, and I would love for somebody to discover Jennifer Lopez. Like my daughter, a year ago, Marry Me came out from Jennifer Lopez, which my daughter adores.
Oh, the Owen Wilson thing.
Yeah, and she adores that film. When she is old enough, I can't wait to take my daughter back to Out of Sight with George Clooney.
Yeah, what a film.
Because that is a film, and that's the Jennifer Lopez that I want to introduce her to, because...
Yeah, I mean...
Not to say she's not amazing now, because she is, but that was when we discovered Jennifer Lopez and her acting, and she was absolutely brilliant.
We're reliving a lot of these things, and with, like I said, about Titanic having an anniversary recently, and we talked about what else had an anniversary recently, and Avatar, of course, that was like
everything.
And then we went back to Avatar because we had Avatar: The Way of Water, and then other things going on elsewhere that kind of brought me back to different decades or things coming back around again. This thing with the Nike movie, Air, we're seeing Ben Affleck and Matt Damon again together. And that takes us back to anybody discovering that for the first time is going to follow their path back to Good Will Hunting, which is incredible. So it's nice to see a lot of anniversaries coming up. Although it does make you feel old, I kind of feel like we're living in a Renaissance period. That 90s show's now on Netflix.
Yeah.
Although you're not a fan, I know. But
I watched the first episode and I didn't think it was good.
But it's not, like I said, we're having all these things with anniversaries and we're coming back around to this stuff, and it's really, really nice to revisit it. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, anniversary 4K box set, for example. And yeah, it's nice to relive those moments, but introduce these movies, these actors, this stuff to a much younger audience who are into it. You know, there are people coming into Titanic and going, oh, this is a Leo movie. Like, wow. You know, they didn't know because they're too young for that. So yeah, it's been cool to both relive those years, but also watch new generations be inspired and want to get involved with some of these timeless. Indiana Jones, of course, that's another one. But yeah, it's been fun.
So coming out on streaming this week is Next Exit and Unrest, and as John mentioned earlier, as and when we have seen these and we can talk about them, we will do so next week. Right, moving on to home entertainment, DVDs, Blu-rays, we can say that Black Panther Wakanda Forever
is now out, not last week, like I said.
And the Woman King as well, which we both loved.
Oh, man.
And thought was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so two really solid, brilliant stories that are actually very similar, really, when you think about it. Well, they are and they aren't, but there's a lot about Woman King that reminded me about Black Panther in terms of just really solid performances and that kind of warriors protecting their kingdoms and that kind of thing that just made them just two really, really solid stories. I love Wakanda Forever, even though it's deeply, deeply imbued with the sad and tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman, but I think that it holds up to holds a torch or holds a candle to him perfectly. I think the way they handled the passing of his character in the actual movie was done beautifully, and I think that Ryan Coogler has respected his dear friend's passing in a way that works very well within the story. I know a lot of people had some issues about the different directions it takes after that. I'm kind of cool with it because it was a really nice opportunity to see other characters come into the spotlight and really hold that spotlight. Queen Ramonda, of course, played by Angela Bassett. And again, Angela Bassett is another one of those people that we spoke about before that is just, you put her in anything and she's incredible. Even Supernova, which, you know, was a questionable movie at best. But she's amazing in it. So Spader's in that as well. Again, another podcast. So, yeah, to see, because this movie was always gonna take its time in terms of how do we approach this, because obviously the second movie was kind of already in play and then he passed. So it was like, now we're going to have to completely reframe this movie around that. And they've done it. It's a beautiful tribute. Yes, of course, it goes kind of like full cartoon Marvel at one point, but then it's a Marvel movie. That's kind of what it's here for. So I know there were some debates over the questionable choices about how the story plays out from there with Namor and stuff like that. But honestly, I appreciated it. I appreciated the way that Chadwick's legacy was handled, and I really, truly appreciated that we even got the movie.
My mother told stories about a place like this, a protected land with people that never have to leave, that never have to change who they were. What reason do you have to reveal your secret to the world?
I am not a woman who enjoys repeating herself. Who are you?
I have many names. My people call me Khan, but my enemies call me Namor.
Other titles that are coming out are After Sun, Triangle of Sadness, and No Man of God. Now, I have seen Triangle of Sadness, and I will say that I enjoyed it. It's again another one of those films that has a lot of mixed reviews. It's split up into 3 sections, 3 stories, and if you can get through the first section, because it is a little bit long and it's difficult viewing because you don't like the characters. You're not meant to like the characters. It's 2 models, and basically for 45 minutes they argue about who should have paid a bill. So I know I'm not selling it overly, but like I say, if you can get through this is setting you up for the next part. And then these 2 models, they're Instagrammers and everything else like that, influencers, and they get invited onto a big yacht with lots of fancy people. Mm-hmm. I won't tell you what happens.
Like you, was it your yacht?
Yeah. I won't tell you what happens, but the one thing that I can tell you is I was crying with laughter because of what happens. It's just
Woody Harrelson in this.
He is He's not a main character or anything. He's got a little cameo in it. It's very funny, his cameo, but it is only a small cameo. What happens on this ship is just brilliant. It's crying with laughter, brilliant. And then the final scene, again, I'm not going to tell you what happens. It takes you through lots of different stages. Watch it. I would recommend to you to watch it. You may not love it. You certainly won't hate it, but you will take something from this film. Is what I would say.
Do you just want to recap on The Woman King as well? Because I know you really, really enjoyed it, and I didn't go into nearly enough detail about that. So do you want to take that one? Because I think it was an awesome film.
I did think it was awesome. I really enjoyed The Woman King. Obviously, we all know that Viola Davis is. We mentioned her earlier. She's just a queen. She's phenomenal.
Warrior.
And I wasn't really sure whether I was going to like this at all, because I didn't know whether it was going to be my thing, and I really, really did. I really, really enjoyed it, you know. And there's such strong characters, obviously strong actors, such strong characters in it. And yeah, again, similar to what we were just saying, it's something. I'm trying to think. It did make my top 10 list. Somewhere around about number 8, I think, top 10 of 2022.
Ooh,
that's how highly I rated it. Yeah, I did think very, very good. And if somebody would like to purchase it for me for Father's Day, which is in June, I believe, or something like that, if somebody wants to, I would be most grateful. Just in case my kids are listening to this podcast, which of course,
there you go.
Yeah, right.
Your dad wants The Woman King for Father's Day. Well, that's a pretty decent gift, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, give the gift of an incredible story. Gina Price Blythewood directed that movie. And yeah, looking forward to a lot more from her too.
Very much, very much. Right, just to wrap up home entertainment, we have got 4K releases of 8 Mile, Last Emperor and Running Man, all coming out in 4K.
Yes, and if you can find one, both The Last Emperor and The Running Man have very, very nice collector's box sets. If you are like me and you are like Paul and we like to collect things and stuff with the art cards and lovely stuff in it. Studio Canal have been absolutely smashing it out of the park with those box sets lately, to be fair. And so have Paramount, actually. Paramount have done some really nice ones recently, Event Horizon, Untouchables and so forth. So yeah, if you like us and you like collecting far too much, especially classic films from the 80s, Running Man and Last Emperor available now with some really cool additions if you want a box set.
Right, so moving on to our interview. We mentioned earlier in the show that the film 3 Day Millionaire is coming to Netflix on the 28th of February. It is a fantastic UK indie film that we've both seen and enjoyed thoroughly. And we were very lucky to talk to director Jack Spring, producer Giles Alderson and Dom Lenoir. I have to say, and I'm going to get this off my chest right now, I absolutely loved it.
Woo!
Thank you very much.
Superb film, guys. Really good.
Really, really good. I watched it Thursday night as soon as I'd been sent it, and it was one of those films that I couldn't because my wife and kids are around, but I wanted to watch it the next day immediately again.
Wow. Well, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
It's certainly not a film that you can watch around your kids.
No. Family friendly sort of isn't.
No. Right, so let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about the script because it's hilariously funny. So where did the script come from? Where did the idea for a 3 Day Millionaire come from?
So it was, I guess I'll speak because I was the first on the project. I got sent the script by Paul Stevenson, the writer, and originally it was set up the road in Hull. But I spent an awful lot of my childhood in Grimsby, and I'm a rather avid Grimsby Town fan. So I took it upon myself to make it work for Grimsby. And, the whole concept of the 3 Day Millionaires is equally as valid there as it is in Hull. Their proximity, 3 Day Millionaires, we're in both places. Yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with it. I mean, it matched my filmmaking kind of style, if you like, the script, the massive hyper-real characters, the Grimsby element, it was obviously close to my heart. And, yeah, it was pretty soon after that I onboarded Giles. The Giles came on kind of within 6 months we were in production, and yeah, it's brilliant ever since.
So when was it actually filmed? Because I've seen a few of the photos and it certainly had that sort of post-COVID element to it.
Yeah, we filmed this. It was pretty much late summer 2021. So it did have that, we were filming in COVID. There's no question about it. We've been very careful. And I'm still surprised now that not one of us got it. I have no idea. We were bubbling, that word that seemed to go around quite a bit. Bubble as much as you can. But you're still in hotels. Not everyone there is bubbling. You're still going to
Champagne
locations
bubbles,
and meet new people. Yeah, champagne bubbles. There's a lot of that. But we had to be very, very careful. You're making a film. If anyone goes down, and it was at a point when it was the busiest in the film industry in the UK for a long, long time. So if you lose a crew member, you kind of, there's no one to fill in. You haven't got anyone on tap to just go, oh yeah, come up for a bit. It's very difficult. So yes, we did very well. So that's when we shot.
In terms of the filmmaking process, guys, there were some shots that were set quite obviously very early in the morning or very late at night within the story. Obviously, location shooting and using locations can often require you to only have access to certain premises or locations at some really grueling times, shall we say. So what was the shooting schedule like for you for some of the early morning and night scenes? And was it a pretty crazy schedule?
It was the easiest film I'd made because we were doing 10-hour days, 5 days a week. On my last movie, we were doing 14-hour days, 7 days a week. So I had an absolute brilliant ride. I had a great time. Charles might have a slightly different version of events. Charles was brilliant at keeping me away from anything that was going on in the background. So I could do my job.
You have to do that as the producer. You have to just keep all the good stuff, shall we say, away from the director. There's no point going up to a director when they're on set and going, hey, do you want the red or the blue? And then going, you can have neither. There's just no point, He or she's
the red or the blue pill like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. They're literally going to go, why are you telling? What do you want me to do about it? I'm about to direct actors in a scene. So you have to only go to the director when you have a real problem or you have a solution, and preferably when you have a solution. So often I was going up to Jack with going, hey, we lost this, but guess what we've got for you? So there's a lot of that. But I do remember certain, we were shooting in pubs that were, some of them were, you wouldn't want to go necessarily there all the time. There's some beautiful places, but you were shooting in pubs that they can be a little bit gnarly, shall we say. So we're there in the middle of the night shooting in these places. And to be fair, they were fantastic to us. Everyone was really supportive, but got to be on your toes late at night and first thing in the morning. But yeah, we just scheduled it well, didn't we, Jack? We just made sure that the light was perfect at those times of day. We really lucked out a lot of the time. The scene down with Queenie and Budgie down on the seafront. We lucked out.
Fantastic.
Suddenly just went. The sky was beautiful. Again, that was just chance. And we did luck out, didn't we, Jack, with the rain as well. When we needed it to rain, it did rain.
It did. Yeah, there was like 2 days of rain in a 25-day kind of total shoot, and if any 2 day, if it was raining, it had to be them 2 days together. If that makes sense for continuity, and it did. But going back to there was quite a lot of light specific shooting, and I think it's testament to the wonderful crew that we had as well. That they were so efficient and just an absolute joy to work with, that could actually get set up and capture. And that scene Giles mentioned down by the sea, well, with Budgie and Queenie, by the end of shooting that, the sea was about half a metre from their feet. So yeah, we weren't just up against it losing light. We were in physical danger for a good percentage of that scene.
Although it's set in Grimsby, I feel it's very appropriate for virtually any town in the UK where a way of life that they had for so many years is slowly dying, and a new way of life is trying to emerge. Dom will totally understand this with where we are in Portsmouth. I know, Jack, you have that connection with Grimsby, but it really could have been sort of shot anywhere, couldn't it?
Totally. I mean, it's a film really about every ex-industrial town or city that at some point had its industry pulled and struggled to find its new identity. I think, although it's set in Grimsby and is very much about Grimsby, it is a reflection of all of them towns, across the UK. Virtually every ex-industrial town outside of London really struggled for, in most cases, a number of decades to find their new sense of identity. And, I think that's what the film's all about when it's kind of stripped back and, you get to the core of it. It's kind of the issue of holding on to that kind of formal way of life, stopping you being able to find your new identity, kind of told through Curly, the main character, really. And yeah, man, I hope it is relatable. It was always we can never make it to Grimsby to exclude everyone else, because then you have a very, very narrow target audience. But yeah, it was always a plan to keep it as relatable as possible.
I have mentioned sort of once or twice, this is a very, very funny film. So I've got a two-part question. Is there any of the film that's ad-libbed, or is it all scripted? And are there any really funny moments that have been left on the cutting room floor that didn't make it?
Oh, there were so many, man. There were so many. It's always it's like I describe filmmaking, right? When you're on set, you are gathering your ice. You make a big block of ice, and then the edit, you're just chiseling it down until it becomes this beautiful mistress. And in that chiseling process, you do let a lot of really good material go. And there were some great bits. There's whole scene. I think the first cut of the film was about 2 hours, and we got it down to 94 minutes. Which is always kind of my target. So yeah, there's so much stuff that you leave on a dressing room floor. There's a whole different beginning of the film. There's a load of stuff towards the end of the film that just kind of kept feeling like a kind of false ending that we cut. And in terms of the ad-lib part of the question, sort of is the answer. I think the script was so good and so kind of nuanced and poetic that you don't want to play with it too much, because it's got such a lovely rhythm to it already. But I always give the actors permission to tweak it kind of as they go. And there's certainly some ad-lib bits that have made the cut. And usually they're tweaking a few words in a sentence rather than coming up with kind of whole scenes as such. Some directors like to work where they just give them a kind of a scene objective and let them go at it. But no, I think because the script was so good, we probably only deviated a kind of couple percent from what was on script.
And some of those funny.
I was just going to say, it's funny that you mentioned about the alternative ending, because that was literally going to be what I was talking about. I thought for a minute at the film, it was going to be one of those films that leaves the ending up to you and you weren't really sure what happened with the guys. It all wraps up very nicely in the end. So was a different ending ever part of the plan?
It wasn't a different ending as such. Kind of everything that is in the cut was always going to be in the cut. There were bits towards the end, like the very end, after they drive off, into the. I don't want to ruin it for the listeners, but
towards
the very end of the film, there were a couple of little bits over the kind of the ending track that nice bits that probably tied up more of the story than we ended up doing. The way that I work, we do so many kind of sort of test screenings as we're editing, just to try different things with kind of fresh eyes. And some of the feedback we were getting that it was kind of you felt it ended 2 or 3 times, so we just got rid of all the kind of additional bits past the ending that you've seen, and just cleaned it all up. And I think it's better for it. I think the feel good element really exists now, whereas I think with the kind of stop-start ending, yes, you had more story closure, but I think it was sacrificing some of the real nice feel good vibes that you get towards the end.
And the film, as Paul's mentioned, we've mentioned many times, it's so well written. The characters are great. It's performed by a really excellent ensemble cast, which got me thinking, if you could each liken yourself to a character in the story, who would you say you were most like or share character traits with?
Gosh. Oh, wow.
Is it Budgie, the one who has the little romance?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably him for me.
Yeah. Oh gosh, they're all so wild. How wild shall I go with my response? I quite like Wheezy. I think he's very kind of direct. He's got his own. He's like cab driver in the film, played by the amazing Robbie G.
Super.
Right, and he's just got that. His through line is just, "I'm just going to do it, boss." It's it. He's just getting stuff done, which is amazing.
For me, it's got to be Elvis. And just naturally, centre stage, rocking and rolling in my jazzy jacket, and what a guy!
What a guy!
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So look, we are sort of running out of time here, but I again want to reiterate how great this film is. Myself and Jon were talking about this, and I do a sort of top 10 and everything else like that. And up until a month ago. I hadn't even heard of this film, and it's now going to make it into my top 10 of the year because I think it's absolutely fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of myself and John. We both love the film, and I hope that, obviously, cinema is the place to go and see it, but with streaming, these films get their legs, don't they? And hopefully this is a film that gains its legs and gains momentum, and in a few months' time, it's a film that everybody is talking about.
Definitely.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
And 3 Day Millionaire is out on Netflix on February the 25th. And if you haven't seen it yet, we strongly urge you to go and see it as soon as you possibly can. That was our chat with director Jack Spring, producer Giles, Alderson, and Dom Lenoir. Right, it's time to move on to our Tip Top 5. This is a feature that I absolutely love, and it's something I've wanted to do for years. Never found the place to do it, and this, of course, is the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, shall I explain what it is?
Yeah, do it.
Now, one of my all-time favourite films is High Fidelity, and if you haven't seen High Fidelity, it's about a bunch of guys who work in a record shop, and of course they have debates about music.
Yeah.
And the way they settle every debate is, what is your all-time top 5... What is your all-time top 5 track 1 side A's? What's your all-time top 5 covers? That's how they settle debates. So this is what we're going to do every single week on We Are Going to Need a Bigger Pod. We are going to come up with a different all-time tip top 5.
Okay.
Now, as it is from, it's come from the movie High Fidelity. What better place to start than with our top 5 John Cusack movies?
I like that. That's a great idea.
Easier said than done.
That's very cool. Okay.
Easier said than done, because John Cusack has made a lot of great films.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Right, so we're going to start with my number 5 through to 1. Okay, right, my number 5 John Cusack movie is Pushing Tin.
Ooh,
Pushing Tin.
What a film.
Pushing Tin is about, he's an air traffic controller. He's the king. He's the best in the business. And then along comes Billy Bob Thornton to show them that he's maybe not quite the man that he thinks he is. And Angelina Jolie is Billy Bob's wife, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal film.
Yeah, it's very good. That's a good choice.
So, moving on to number 4. My number 4, again, is an ensemble. It's Identity.
Very, very good thriller.
Amazing. It's very Alfred Hitchcock. A group of strangers are stranded at a motel in the middle of nowhere in America. It's a torrential storm. The roads are flooded in every which direction, so nobody can get out. And one of the people that is in the motel with them is a prisoner who's being transferred. And unfortunately, one by one, people slowly start getting bumped off. But who is doing the bumping?
Wow.
Now, I have to say...
It's not that kind of film, Paul. It's not that kind of film. Come on.
I have to say, in terms of twists at the end of the film, this one is up there with The Sixth Sense. There aren't many films that have a twist as good as this one.
It is a good solid twist, I'll give you that.
It is a very, very good twist. Right, moving on to number 3, we are now entering the higher echelon of John Cusack films right now. Number 3 is Grosse Pointe Blank.
I'm so glad that you got this down, because we'll get to this in a minute, but I struggled.
Well, number 3, Grosse Pointe Blank, John Cusack, Minnie Driver, Dan Aykroyd, Hank Azaria, who is phenomenal as one of the agents trying to take John Cusack down. If you haven't seen this, he's a hitman who gets invited to his high school reunion. I think is it 10 years, 20 years? Can't remember what it is. I think it's 10 years, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
isn't there the Jeremy Piven thing where he's like 10 years, man?
That's it, Jeremy.
It's 10 years.
Jeremy Piven before Entourage.
I still use that quote.
10 years.
Yeah, I still use that now. Although as the whiles of time go by, then the years get up.
20 years.
Yeah. 30 years, man. But
we're going to be in our 60s going 50 years, man.
Oh yeah, don't. It's like the end of Bill and Ted. No, anyway, we won't spoil that.
Absolutely brilliant film. It's one of the films that really made John Cusack who he is and everything else like that.
I think, I mean, he's done a lot of great. We'll come back round to that. I keep saying we'll come back round to that in a second because, you keep going. Keep going.
So my number 2 is a departure from what would be considered the usual type of John Cusack film. My number 2 is 1408.
Yeah, now you really, really like 1408. I think it's good.
I love this movie because it's a horror. So John Cusack is he writes books about haunted houses and supernatural and things like that. And by his own admission, he's a little bit of a hack. Mm-hmm. And the vast amount of what he puts in his books are maybe spins on the truth and maybe not entirely the truth. And he kind of writes whatever sells books. Mm-hmm. So he goes to this hotel, which allegedly has a haunted room, and he's greeted by the hotel manager, who is Samuel L. Jackson, who literally offers him anything he wants as long as he doesn't go and rent that room. I will give you the suite. I'll give you, everything that you want as long as you don't stay in that room. And
of course, he wants that room.
It's not working. I'm going to go and stay in that room. And that's when the movie begins. The supernatural, it's all true, it all comes out. Or is it a figment of his imagination? Because he's just gone through a breakup with his now ex-wife. He's lost his daughter. He's been through a lot. So is it the supernatural or is it his mind?
Yes, the old,
And again,
is it real or is it stress?
I literally have goosebumps on me right now thinking about the twist at the end. I was going to talk about the twist at the end, and I'm literally covered in goosebumps.
No, don't talk about the twist at the end. Somebody might be discovering this for the first time.
Because we spoke about the twist at the end of Identity, the twist at the end of 1408.
Yeah.
When that happens, jaw on the floor.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. Of course, my number 1 tip-top John Cusack film is the place where it all started, High Fidelity.
This top 5 started in High Fidelity, which of course is the film, the Americanized adaptation of the British-based book.
Nick Hornby.
Yeah, which is a fantastic book.
Which is very, very good.
I like both. I really like the book. I love the book. The book is incredible. If you have seen... because at High Fidelity, of course, there was another version of it on Disney Plus. There's also the original movie on Disney Plus
with Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, and
I haven't seen it because the nice little touch there, of course, is her mum was in the movie.
That's correct. So the original movie is on Disney Plus. So is the new version. But obviously, for anyone that didn't know, it is also based on a really amazing book that's incredible. In fact, I really like all intonations of High Fidelity. I think they work cross-platform really well. It's a very good choice for number 1. Really good choice for number 1.
It's the first DVD I ever bought, and it cost me £20.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
And that's how much I love it. And at the time, when obviously before the internet, or certainly before the internet was widespread, and when we owned 5 DVDs and you watched them on a continuous loop, I watched High Fidelity untold amount of times.
That came out the same year as Gladiator and Mission Impossible 2, because I remember those 3 movies I just kept watching over and over again. I know, but the Mission Impossible 2 thing is for another podcast. We will talk about Mission Impossible in great depth, because I know it's not everyone's favourite mission film, but it has its qualities. Anyway, that's for something else. Right now, we're talking about John Cusack. So you gave me the task of seeing if I could find my top 5.
Now, I want your top 5 John Cusack films.
Okay, so here's the reason why you're in charge of top 5. Straight out of the gate, the reason why you're in charge of top 5 is I got it down to 10.
And that was the best you could do.
And they're not even in any particular order because they're all good for different reasons. I don't think that I want to rate anyone over the others. So here's the thing.
Now, what I want you to do, I want you to list your top 10.
But it's not in any particular order.
In no particular order, but I'm going to challenge you to just pick one
to win
as your number 1.
I think that's fair. Okay, I think that's fair. So, my favourite 10 John Cusack films that I like to return to quite often, actually, if I think about it, quite often, are Say Anything.
Great film.
The Grifters.
Oh, yeah.
Con Air.
Oh, yeah.
He is... I love him in Con Air.
Yeah, he's great.
Con Air might not necessarily be the best film I've ever made.
Is it Vince Larkin?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But he's really great in it. Also, if you approach Con Air with the tongue in the cheek and the pinch of salt that it was made in the spirit in which it was made... Bearing in mind, they made a lot of stuff up as they went along. Then, it can be quite a good film. Pushing Tin was also in my list. High Fidelity was very high on my list, I must say. America's Sweethearts was another one.
Yes, I love that. It's a great movie.
Serendipity is a film I return to more often than I realised I did.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Oh, you should seek that out.
Okay.
It's a beautiful film. Identity, of course, that was in this.
Yeah.
Runaway Jury was also in that
Yes,
list.
great movie.
But I did pick a number one, and my number one is, of course, Grosse Point Blank.
Oh.
Because Grosse Point Blank is one of, not just, I think, John Cusack's greatest movie, but also, I think, one of the greatest action comedies ever made.
I love the and I'm not sure what the word is, but the spitballing between him and Dan Aykroyd when they're sitting opposite in the cafe ordering the omelettes and the coffee and all that.
Their camaraderie is amazing.
Oh, it's phenomenal, isn't
Minnie
it?
Driver's great in that movie as
Yes.
well. Everyone's great in that movie. So Grosse Point Blank for me is my all-time number one.
Is Alan Arkin the dad as well? Is it Alan Arkin? I think it is, isn't it?
Maybe.
Who plays her dad? I'm pretty sure it's Alan Arkin.
I'm pretty certain it is.
Yeah.
Is it Alan Arkin?
I think so, yeah. And
Is
he's
it?
great. He's great. Because he walks in,
So
doesn't
many
he? He
people
walks
in
in.
the comments right now going,
So, what
idiots."
have you been doing for the last 10 years? He says, dropped out of school, did this, did that, became an
cleaner.
assassin.
Oh, no, he says, yeah.
He literally says, became an assassin. He goes, oh, great. Did you get dinner with that?
Yeah. Great. Great script.
Superb. It's superb.
So tightly written. So yeah, my all-time top 5 turned into my all-time top 10, but nonetheless, we arrived in the same place in terms of we both had a all-time number one John Cusack movie.
Yes.
That was the point of the exercise.
Yes.
Yours is High Fidelity, mine's Grosse Point Blank, and to be honest, if you're listening, you haven't seen either of them, that's a pretty solid double bill.
If you're going to go John Cusack double bill of Grosse Point Blank and High Fidelity.
You're not going to go wrong with either of those movies, so check them both out if you haven't as yet already. I do believe they are both on Disney+.
Right, so we're going to move on to our final feature, which is something we're going to do weekly. We're going to end the pod with something really, really positive, something really, really good, because this is what we like to put into the world. So we're going to pick somebody every week who deserves that little bit more attention, not just because of the actor or the person that they are, but because of the person they are off the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, both those things. So we've called it GOAT of the Week, greatest of all time of the week. GOAT of the Week. This week, the award goes to Mr. Brendan Fraser. Now, if you know anything about Brendan Fraser's story, and again, I won't speculate on that, by all means, the internet is your friend. Not always your friend, actually.
Well, no,
Let's walk that back a little bit.
Let's rephrase that.
In terms of,
it can be your friend if you want it to be.
Seek out the facts. That's all I say. Seek out, if you want to know his story, because his journey's incredible. Obviously, from the heights of the mid to late 90s, he was a massive star in terms of, really great film. I really like Bedazzled. I know we talked about this before. I love Bedazzled. But of course, The Mummy, massive movie, incredible. I love George of the Jungle. George of the Jungle, I could still watch that. Right, I go home and watch that right now. And then, of course, some things unfolded. Some things happened. I'm not going to speculate or go into great detail about those things. But what I will say is that the man has been on a journey. And at times it's been an incredibly difficult.
He's a man with principles, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He's a man with principles.
He's a decent, upstanding, polite, brilliant guy. He's very talented, and he's been through the ringer. And he's been on this journey. It's not always been easy, and it's oftentimes been very difficult, even when he was a huge star. And I'm pleased to say, well, for those of us that really love him, He has never not been a huge star in our hearts and our minds. He's continued to be a big star even when he wasn't around. Nonetheless, he is back with a vengeance right now in films like The Whale, which he's absolutely sweeping the board with awards. And these are all awards I feel like, yes, he deserves these awards for The Whale. He certainly does. But I kind of feel like he's been long overdue these awards for about 25 years. So he's an incredible man. He's a wonderful human. Every single person that I know that's had anything to do with him on any level has only ever spoken incredibly positively about him as a human being. So our GOAT of the week is Brendan Fraser, and of course The Whale is in cinemas now.
Did you see recently he won the award for Best Actor? I'm going to say the Golden Globes, was it? Did he win Best Actor?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah.
His speech at the Golden Globes was like it was the last time he was ever going to win anything for the rest of his life.
He's so humble.
So humble, so grateful. And I'm sure, didn't he say something like the last time I won anything, it was my, high school softball team?
Exactly, which is why I said all the awards and deserved fame he's getting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a guy that the Prince Charles Cinema in London decided to have a Mummy screening, like an anniversary screening for the Mummy, and nobody knew. But he just showed up.
And didn't he show up in costume?
In costume as Rick from the Mummy, and came on stage and of course the place went wild. But yeah, no, he's the GOAT of the week. Do go and check out The World. If you haven't seen The Mummy before, it's the first time you're hearing about that. Go and see that.
Yeah.
Not the Tom Cruise one, the other one.
No.
The one from the 90s, The Mummy with him and brilliant. Rachel Weisz and John Hannah and great, superb. So yeah, check those out. That's us. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far,
if you've got this far into the pod, you are a trooper. Well done.
We love you. Thank you so much. So just to kind of recap on a couple of things, all the films we talked about are out now. Of course, we did speak briefly about some of those movies. We do want to just give a quick shout out to our friends at the View Cinema in Gunwharf Quays here in Portsmouth, where we record the podcast. Also our friends at Express FM and Express FM Studios, which is also where we record our podcast. So do go and check out the View Cinema wherever you are. If you've got a View Cinema near you, by all means go and check them out, myview.com. And a big shout to our lovely, wonderful friends and supporters at Express FM, expressfm.com. If you are local to the area of Portsmouth or South East Hampshire, by all means, ask your smart speaker to play Express FM. Check out what they're doing. We're on there too. Yay! But a wealth of great content there for you to listen to, and some great presenters too. So 93.7 FM if you're in the Portsmouth area, expressfm.com online, or ask your smart speaker to play Express FM. I promise you, if you're local, it's worth it.
Right, so if you want to find us individually on social media, we are at Paul Swampy Marsh and at Jon Brown TV. John with no H, just Jon Brown TV.
JONBROWN TV. I made that more complicated than I needed to.
But far more importantly, go and give our new page a follow, which is across all social media. Need a bigger pod. Need a bigger pod.
Need a bigger pod. All socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Do go and check us out. And again, big thank you to everybody that had any part of this first episode. Thank you very much. Also, big shout out to Mason Jordan for our lovely artwork that you're probably seeing on your phone somewhere. And to Disney, Signature Entertainment, and everybody else that got involved with this week's show. Thank you very much.
Like, subscribe and share, and we will be back next week.
And Apple TV Films. Sorry, got to get that in there. Bye, Paul. Bye.
No.
Bye.
No.
No, you hang up first.